Hi everyone, and welcome to A Dose of Wellbeing, the Pharmacist Support podcast. I'm Riven, Senior Service Delivery Officer at Pharmacist Support, the profession's independent charity. And today I'm excited to be joined by my colleague Melissa Cochrane, our Wellbeing Development Manager. We'll be diving into the topic of nutrition and mental well-being and the exciting new wellbeing workshop that Melissa's developed. Before we start, we'd like to thank our partners Teva UK, who have sponsored this podcast, enabling us to further our mission to support the well-being of our pharmacy family. Well, welcome, Melissa. It's really great to have you here to discuss this important topic. So, really, I suppose to start with, just interested, why did you feel it was important to develop this workshop for pharmacist students and trainees on nutrition and mental health and the link between these things?
Well, back when I did my training in mental health and psychotherapy, I didn't even know there was a connection between I think we were aware that there's the mind-body connection, but we didn't really have much awareness that what you eat can also influence mental health. I think that awareness is now increasing. You'll find some doctors who are aware of this, but I don't think there are that many counselors, psychotherapists, psychologists who would necessarily ask you what you're eating when they come to talk to you about your anxiety or your depression or something like that. I think it's changing slowly, but I don't think there's too much of an awareness yet. But there are so many systems that are involved in feelings of well-being. You've got your digestive system, you've got hormones, you have the gut-brain connections, the microbes in your gut, nutrition, all of these impact well-being. So it makes sense that we need to look at this a little bit more holistically.
Yeah, sure. That makes a lot of sense. And I think you're right, probably, most maybe doctors and, people that are involved in talking treatments, it's not really the first thing that they go to when they're looking at what might be making someone feel, like they're feeling really. So, it's really fascinating. And I just wondered, how long you've been interested in this connection between nutrition and mental health. For example, was there anything that sparked your interest in relation to this?
Yeah, I'd say I've been interested in this for about 10 years. There was, I think one of the first things that got me interested in it was there was a show on the BBC called Doctor in the House. And there was a doctor called Rangan Chatterjee who went into people's homes and he was living with them and trying to help them to solve whatever health issues they might have through diet and lifestyle. And some of the people he was working with had mental health issues. And at the time, I was quite skeptical of what this was going to achieve. But he was getting some really good results, and I found it really fascinating. The penny really dropped for me later when I had some food intolerances diagnosed. And something that I had thought was psychological for years, I found out wasn't. So I would get what I thought of as a nervous stomach, like it would feel like butterflies in my stomach, or when you're really nervous about something, that particular stomach feeling. And so I would get that periodically, and I would sort of be going through thinking, okay, what was I just thinking about that made me feel nervous suddenly? But when I eliminated the foods that I was intolerant to, that just went away. And I realized, okay, so it wasn't nerves. It wasn't a nervous stomach. It was related to food. So since that time, I've done a lot of study and research to try to understand these really complex mind-body interactions. And I'm really interested to share these because I think that it could help a lot of people.
Wow, yeah. Obviously it sounds like something that you've got real personal experience of, and understandable that you would want to look into that further. And just amazing, that you'd been going through something like that, and then something such as your diet and nutrition has made such a positive change, after what it seems like quite a while of trying to sort of look into it really, and, understand what was going on for you. So yeah, that's really fascinating. And thanks for sharing, that personal experience there. So I mean, I'm aware you've accumulated a wealth of qualifications over the years. Forgive me for having to look at my piece of paper here, but there is quite a lot of them. So I hope you don't mind if I just list, the qualifications that you have here. So you're an accredited psychotherapist with the British Association for Counselling and Psychotherapy, a qualified coach and member of the Association for Coaching. You've completed courses in neuroscience, and that's applying neuroscience for the treatment of trauma, anxiety and stress disorders, and nutritional psychiatry, so improving mental health through diet and nutrition. So yes, quite a lot of qualifications there. But my understanding is in particular the nutrition training was quite a recent one, but obviously with all your other training as well, how has this training influenced the content of this workshop?
Well, I was already fascinated with the bidirectionality of emotional and digestive disorders. So I was familiar with how the psychological could impact the digestive system. I wasn't really aware that things can go the other way too. So this knowledge has helped me to understand that things move in both directions. And I think I've taken that knowledge in this course, and I'm trying to help other people to understand how that works as well.
Okay, yeah. So that's a really fascinating point, really, because yes, people may have had experience of one, or particularly, how your feeling can impact, kind of physical symptoms and things like that. But, to actually think that what you're eating can have a real impact on, your mental health and how you are feeling is really, really fascinating. So I suppose when you was doing the training, and particularly your recent nutrition training, was there anything particularly that surprised you? Can you say anything that you found most surprising during that training?
Well, I was really interested to see that in robust studies, dietary interventions actually outperformed social support.
Oh, really? Okay.
I wasn't expecting to see that. So, and at Deakin University, they did a study where they looked at adults who had major depressive disorder, and they used a modified Mediterranean diet as an intervention. And interestingly, they achieved remission in more than 30% of adults who had that intervention. And so I don't need to tell pharmacists how impressive that kind of result is. I do think that understanding in this area is new. It's just starting to develop. Nutritional psychiatry is a very new branch of psychiatry, but I think that we know enough now that we can start to make some recommendations that will help people. I do think it's interesting how emotive the subject of food can be for people. You see on social media, there can be diet wars, people really very emotional about which kind of diet is best for themselves and for the planet, for other people. And I do think that there are principles that can benefit us all. And I think that we can apply these in ways that suit us biologically, morally, and ethically as individuals. So I try to focus on that and stay away from advocating one type of diet or a one-size-fits-all approach.
Well, that sounds like a really, really great approach. And I'm guessing, for someone that's got a keen interest in nutrition, your diet's probably pretty good. But I'm just wondering, even with someone with probably a pretty good diet, did you find through your recent training that you were actually still making some positive changes? Was there anything that you could highlight?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm much more conscious of what processed foods might be in my diet now. I'm very aware of oils and only using high quality natural oils. I'm also aware of what oils are used in processed foods. So I read labels a lot. And you can get some foods that they are processed, but the ingredients list is pretty natural. And then you get to the oils and you think, oh, they've not used a good oil there. So I'm very aware of that kind of thing. I'm aware of sugar. I try to stay away from artificial sweeteners and added sugars. If I do snack, I try to snack on whole foods like nuts, fruits, and vegetables. But I also snack less because I'm trying to give my body a break and to have some time without having to process and digest food.
Yeah, and that sounds really interesting. And I know from, having took the workshop myself, there's some real eye-opening stuff in there. Stuff where you think,
great.
You're really on the right side of, kind of what you're eating. And really some quite surprising stuff that's enabled you, well, me certainly, to really think about things and, start making really relatively quick changes that hopefully, going to have some real benefit, really. So that's really great. And in terms of this workshop, I mean, from what you've said there, even if you've got a pretty good diet, I think there's lots that you can learn from this workshop and make improvements and, maybe enable you just to review your diet a little bit more, because I think we can kind of trick ourselves sometimes to thinking, we're doing everything right because we just don't know really, and there's so much emerging science and information out there. But if you was to say that there was an ideal audience for the workshop, would you say there is, or, kind of anyone can benefit, or?
I think it's suitable for most people. I would like to help people to maintain or increase their well-being. That's my goal with creating this.
Sure.
Some pharmacists already understand the principles of food as medicine, probably with relation to things like heart health, diabetes, that kind of thing. So I'd like to increase the understanding that food can be medicine in terms of mental health and psychiatric symptoms as well. I'm certainly not saying that it would replace medications or psychotherapy or counseling, anything like that. But it's important to be aware of, either as an adjunct or maybe for people who don't want to take medication, they don't feel comfortable with it. There might be other interventions that would suit them. So I think it's nice to know this for ourselves. There are some people who might want to be careful when embarking on dietary changes. So people who have disordered eating, for example, or specific medical needs might not, might talk to their doctor before making changes. But I do think that we can all probably benefit from reducing our processed food and eating more fruit and vegetables.
Yes, I think we'd probably all agree with that, and especially after seeing this workshop. But that's really great to know, that it can be used as, potentially as an alternative to what might be seen as traditional methods, but not saying that it can necessarily replace them, but also supporting other forms of support. If you've got that real good base there, with your nutrition, and you're really making those positive changes, that sounds like it could be really, really, really useful for someone. So that's really great. And I mean, without giving away too many spoilers, sorry, I was just wondering if you could give us a little taster, I suppose, pun intended, of what the workshop actually covers.
Yeah, sure. So we look at the gut-brain axis and how microbes affect our mental well-being as well as our general health. I give some very practical information about foods that we might want to incorporate or avoid. But I think it's really important in this course that I write with humility, because the research is evolving all the time, and things that we know one day we find out, not too long after, it's maybe a little bit more nuanced, or things are slightly different than we thought. So I think it's important to hold that in mind all the time. I want to help people to make educated decisions for themselves. So to understand that people respond to foods differently. And I talk about this, and it's like medicines. Not everybody responds to the same medication in the same way. It works for some people. For other people, the side effects might be intolerable.
That's a really important point.
And food is the same. So there's not one perfect diet. It's highly individual. And in this course, I try to help people to understand how foods may impact them individually, and what are some general principles that we can all benefit from.
That's a really, really important point. And I think, kind of how we approach things at the charity, perhaps with our regular workshops and things like that, we'll be presenting lots of different options for people. And, certainly when, I'm ever presenting workshops, I'm always talking about, what works for you and trying things out. And, it can be sometimes a bit frustrating when you feel like you're putting in the effort and, you might not see the change straight away. But when you do see that change, it can be, it sounds a bit over the top, but it really can be life-changing sometimes. Yeah. You've mentioned that from,
absolutely.
When you was talking about your own experience there. So it's a journey, really, I suppose, to use a cliche, but that's really, really worthwhile, because once you get that one thing where you really notice that change, whether it's nutrition, whether it's, techniques that you're using, self-help techniques for your mental health, and the difference it can make to your life is just huge, really. So it's absolutely worth sticking at. And I think it's great that the workshop gives people those options, that they're able to kind of look at kind of what's going to benefit them with nutrition, rather than just saying, oh yeah, do this and it's going to work for everyone, sort of thing, because we know that's not the case, really. And I suppose just a really practical question, really, just how long the workshop is and how people can access it.
Yeah, so it's about an hour and a half. That includes a few activities. Okay. It is available on our Wellbeing Learning platform, which pharmacists, trainees, and students can all sign up to for free.
Okay.
It's going live as part of our Act Now campaign. I'm excited to get feedback and get some people through, and I hope it helps people.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm sure it will. There's just so much great stuff in there, and exciting to launch as part of our Pharmacist Act Now campaign. Absolutely. So, for anyone that hasn't had chance to take the workshop yet, can you give any quick tips maybe that people can start implementing, straight away that could improve their diet and mental health?
Yeah, I don't think any of this is going to probably be too surprising to people, but I would say to reduce your intake of processed foods is a great place to start. Eat more whole foods. Eat lots of diverse fruit and vegetables, and look at trying to get things with lots of different colors into your diet. I would say to transition to high quality oils. Like that's one that I'm not sure is as well known, but I think the quality of the oils that we consume is really important. And then for people who have symptoms, learning how to carry out an elimination diet is probably important, because that can be the first step to figuring out if there are foods that are triggering problems.
And you do talk about that in the workshop, don't you?
I do.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah, that sounds like a really great place to start, and a good foundation for maybe taking the workshop and making some even more positive changes. But even if you're starting from afresh with the workshop, there's so much in there that can really help you think about what you're eating and how it's making you feel, really. So yeah, that's excellent. Well, it's been really brilliant to talk to you today, Melissa, and I hope our listeners feel inspired to check out the workshop. Nutrition is so important in helping you to have the resilience and energy, really, to work and study in the hugely rewarding, but at times, as we know, very challenging world of pharmacy. So thank you again, Melissa. It's been really great to speak to you. And if you have enjoyed or been inspired by today's podcast and would like to support us to create more wellbeing content for the pharmacy profession and to help us provide our essential services, please consider making a donation. You can find a QR code in the show's description at the end of the video for those of you that are watching. And if you're interested in receiving more wellbeing content, please consider signing up for our Act Now campaign, and you can find out more information on our website, pharmacistsupport.org. So a big thanks again for your time today, Melissa, and thanks to all of our listeners for tuning in, and we look forward to you joining us again on our next episode of A Dose of Wellbeing, the Pharmacist Support podcast. So thank you, take care, and bye for now.
Thank you.